Michelin Endurance XD silicone wiper blades, 2 times longer than other blades. Available at Walmart. Michelin. He played in the NFL for 6 years, played for Cincinnati, most notably, Solomon Wilcots. He's a Pro Football Focus, a PFF senior analyst. He said something yesterday, and people may get worked up. Let's bring him in via the Coward Global Satellite Network. Okay, so you said, listen, I saw Carson Palmer get, garbage dumped on his lawn. This is a tough franchise. Basically, you saw the life, the football love sucked out of Carson Palmer. Has anything changed in Cincinnati since then? If I'm Joe Burrow, should I feel like, well, it's not as bad as it used to be? Should he think that?
Well, first, I want to be clear, Colin, because what I said was I saw the life sucked out of Carson Palmer by what happened to him with things off the field. When fans show up at your house, when you're not there and your wife or kids are there and they're dumping garbage on your front lawn and your family is made to feel unsafe, I was bothered by that. I saw Andy Dalton be booed by fans here in Cincinnati, a place where I live and have called home for 30 years. He was booed at a celebrity softball game. He's giving of his own time to do charity work for local causes, but I saw him treated poorly by fans here. 2 of the best quarterbacks the franchise have had, along with Kenny Anderson and Boomer Esiason, and both of these guys have not been treated well by the fans. So when Sam Weiss said, hey, you live in Cincinnati, what he was saying is, hey, we're better than that. And that's exactly what I was saying. I think the fans can be better. I think the fans can treat the quarterback better.
It is interesting. I talked to 2 NFL executives last night, and, I talked about the Tua situation, and what concerns both of them is it's not like a shoulder injury that you kind of know what you have. It's a hip injury. Bo Jackson suddenly one day was great, the next day couldn't play. When you talk to your people and you grade Tua, if the hip is okay, does he grade as high as Burrow to you if the hip's not an issue?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and we've seen the body of work from Tua. We've seen him step out and play with great poise, throw the ball with great accuracy, play well while under pressure. That is the ability to diagnose the defense, read the blitzing defense, stay calm under pressure, get rid of the ball quickly and accurately to create big plays for his offense. He did it time and time again at Alabama. The one thing about it, Joe Burrow did it probably as good as any quarterback we have seen in the history of college football, and certainly for as long as we have been grading players at the collegiate level here at PFF. Joe Burrow did it better than anyone for a full season, but Tua did it for 2.5 seasons, including a championship game as a freshman. So, yeah, both guys grade extremely high in those most critical areas when we're talking about being pro-ready for the NFL.
By the way, Teddy Bridgewater now, the Saints are bringing Drew Brees back. So Teddy Bridgewater, I believe Teddy Bridgewater is going to have a real market. There are rumors now that the Raiders could part with Derek Carr. I think he'd have a real market. There are stories today. Vegas now, Fox Bet believes Tua could go to Detroit. Matt Stafford would have a real market. If I told you today, Stafford, Derek Carr, Teddy Bridgewater, all on the market, where would you put them in terms of what's their market value? 1, 2, 3. Bridgewater, Stafford, and who was the other one I said? Derek Carr.
Derek Carr. For me, it would be Matthew Stafford. Here's a guy that, remember, I think you only have to go back to 2016 when he set a single-season record for come-from-behind wins. Here's a guy that had 8 straight seasons where he started all 16 games for a team that has always had this turnstile of different coaches, different coordinators, different general managers. But yet he has brought stability to an organization that I don't know if the team has failed him more than anything else. I think Matthew Stafford has shown himself to be a tremendous competitor, and if put in the right situation, planted in the right garden, right, with the right coaching staff, he could win for you, I think, right now. I think Derek Carr is a quarterback that's kind of been maybe undermined a little bit in the situation that he's in.
I agree.
His career was on an upward trajectory. And then all of a sudden, once I saw Khalil Mack go, I predicted it. I said, Amari Cooper's going to be next. And then they're going to blame it all on Derek Carr. He's going to be the last guy left from the old regime. And we've seen it play out that way. I believe in Derek Carr. He can play for the right franchise for a coach who really wants him to be the quarterback. And I think Teddy Bridgewater, say maybe Chicago, if Matt Nagy could work with him, I think he'd be a good fit there. It's all about where is the best fit for Teddy Bridgewater.
At Pro Football Focus, you're a senior analyst. I don't think there'll be a robust, dynamic market for Cam. He's had now multiple injuries, a shoulder injury. I don't think his mechanics have ever really improved. In fact, I think those injuries have created a tendency. He's now throwing as if he's hurt. It's just off. I don't see a robust market for Cam if he was available. Do you? What does PFF say?
Well, health is the number one determining factor in terms of your ability to be available for your team. Yeah, all the data shows that, of course, the accuracy has never been, say, at the top level with the top-tier quarterbacks in our league. Cam has always played a different style and a different brand of football that you go back to 2015, an MVP-type season. Even then, he played a different style, much like what you see with the designed runs with Lamar Jackson. But that body, sooner or later, we knew would break down. You can only sustain so much punishment at the NFL level. And what's going to happen is the production level is going to come down as you spend more time in the training room. Guess what? The technique and fundamentals that go with being able to play at a high level, particularly with accuracy, timing, footwork, release point, all those things begin to suffer. And so unless he can get the health back to get back on the practice field to work on his craft, yeah, I'd have to agree with you. It's going to be difficult for him to get back to that level because we don't know that he's ever really worked to play the game differently. Is he ever going to be a true pocket passer?
Yeah.
Or is he always going to lean on the style of play that has made him successful?
By the way, you live in Cincinnati. I was told last night that Cincinnati, if Joe Burrow says I'm not going to play here, they don't care. He's a life preserver, and they know it, and they need juice. You live in Cincinnati. If I'm Joe Burrow and say tomorrow I'd rather not play, what do the Bengals do, in your opinion?
First of all, I love Cincinnati. I made it my home for the last 30 years. I grew up right where you are right now in Los Angeles, California, and I live here in Cincinnati. I absolutely love it. This is a franchise that wants to win a Super Bowl. I don't know where that narrative came from. There's not one team in the NFL who doesn't want to win a Super Bowl. You go back to last decade, they had 5 straight seasons of going to the playoffs. Now, they didn't win in the postseason, but they had built one of the most dominant and one of the best rosters in the National Football League. They need a quarterback in their eyes and in their mind. They believe that Joe Burrow is the best quarterback in the 2020 draft. They're going to use that first overall pick, I believe anyway, in my opinion, on Joe Burrow. If he shows up at Paul Brown Stadium, you can bet people will come from miles away, from every corner of the state of Ohio, to see Joe Burrow at Paul Brown Stadium. They're going to come all the way up from the bayou to pack that stadium. And that's more than we could say for any quarterback who's probably played here in the last 10 years. I think it will be a good fit. And Colin, I haven't read anywhere where Joe Burrow says he does not want to play in his home state here in Ohio. I think he wants to play here, and I think it will be a great fit between a player, a team, and a town.
Solomon Wilcots, NFL, 6 years, PFF. Good talking to you again, Solomon. Appreciate you stopping by our show.
All right, Colin, take care.
Yeah, I was told last night Cincinnati is not going to back down. They're going to take him, and if it just doesn't matter. They're taking him, and they don't care if he doesn't want to be here. Elway and Eli, forced hand, it's not going to matter. Steven Jackson's coming up. Joy Taylor with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News, sponsored by Mercedes-Benz. The best or nothing.
Well, continuing to talk about Cincinnati and Joe Burrow, one former Bengal is encouraging Joe Burrow to join the team. Chad Johnson tweeted, having dinner with Burrow prior to the draft let him know he's in great hands because that bleeping city rocks and everybody will love you.
Does it really rock?
He played 10 seasons in Cincinnati, and Chad Johnson is a world traveler. He's been lots of places.
Yeah.
Speaking very highly of Cincinnati. Look, I haven't spent a lot of time in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of time in Ohio.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't know if I was in Joe Burrow's shoes, if this was the move that I would make. Some people feel that Joe Burrow doesn't have enough leverage and isn't good enough to make a call like this. I personally disagree. I also am never going to fault anyone, especially a young person, taking their career into their own hands. Now, we get to kind of a little delusional and romantic with loyalty and all that stuff in sports. And, you know, some people feel like, you know, it's a privilege. It is a privilege and it's an honor to play in the NFL, obviously. But you also have to consider that you're going to be there for the next 7 years. In my opinion, being the business that I work in, while they did make the playoffs, that's cool. They didn't do anything in the playoffs.
Well, that was by far and away the high point in the last 30 years. Just getting in the wild card round. Just getting in.
And listen, I think Marvin Lewis deserves a lot of credit.
Yeah.
He did an amazing job with that franchise. But what are the Cincinnati Bengals? They do have the #1 overall pick in the draft.
Oh, they're going to take Burrow. It's not even.
But I'm saying, it's not like we're talking about a franchise that doesn't have the #1 overall pick in the draft. You had a disaster of a season with Andy Dalton, who we have had conversations about will have a market to go to another team. We've talked about him possibly going to the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is a very tough situation because Joe Burrow is from Ohio, and I think it's very difficult for young people, unless you have a legendary father or somebody with influence in football. It's very difficult for players to say, I don't want to be there. It's hard. It's like, it's easy for me to say, but it's Cincinnati is not backing down. They're like, we don't care. Then sit out.
And Cincinnati shouldn't, because they are the ones who have the power to say we're still going to take you.
That's right.
Now, if I'm Cincinnati and Joe Burrow comes out and emphatically says I don't want to play there, I'm not going to take him, because I think that's a disaster of a situation. You're then going to have to find some goodwill with the fans, because you have a guy who said, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
And as Solomon just said, fans in Cincinnati are not going to be very receptive to that. So that's not really a good PR move. So all that juice that you think you're getting, you're actually not.
But remember, the NFL, unlike other sports, does not, I mean, they don't let the players be as mobile, nor do they give them 9-year contracts like baseball. The NFL's basically not run by labor. NFL's run by owners.
No, it's not.
And by the way, so they don't have the problems the NBA sometimes does with mobility, or the baseball problems. You say a 10-year contract. So the NFL's always been like, players, you're not running the league. This sport gives us 7,000 guys a year. We'll just replace you unless you're Patrick Mahomes. So Cincinnati could play very much the rigid NFL team, and it would have support from the league, because the NFL's not the NBA or baseball. It is not run by players. It's a
difficult situation for Joe Burrow, because if he does say this and Cincinnati ends up taking him, he has no goodwill within the city or his hometown. So that whole pitch is gone.
It's hard.
If Cincinnati doesn't take him and he goes somewhere else and he's a failure, then people are going to judge him for that. So probably the safest move is to just not say that I don't want to play in Cincinnati and go there and see what happens. I just hope it doesn't end up affecting his career, because he did just have the best statistical season in college football history at the quarterback position. So Ryan Tannehill turned the Titans season around after he was named the starting quarterback in Week 7. He's about to be a free agent and maybe looking for a new team. But if it was up to Derrick Henry, Tannehill would stay right where he is, even if it means passing on Tom Brady.
He still can play. I mean, like,
no question,
obviously age doesn't matter for, him. He's still playing at a high level. My question would be, why Ryan good enough, Speaking for everybody, on the offense, I can say we kind of like fed off of him by the way he was playing. Ryan Tannehill was our quarterback, went to the AFC Championship. Why would we not want Ryan back?
Well, because basically he threw for 160 yards in 2 games. That's why. It's not.
That's on the Bussin' with the Boys podcast. Yeah, it's tough to compare Tom Brady and Ryan Tannehill at this point, obviously. I'm going to go with Tom Brady in that spot, but I'm sure the guys in the locker room have a lot of loyalty to Ryan Tannehill, and Derrick Henry just showed an example of that. If Tom Brady does come to the Titans, it's not just that he's coming to a new organization, and obviously he has some connections there with Vrabel and some of the other staff members, but the locker room is important too. And I'm sure the guys in that locker room look at Ryan Tannehill like, what was a lost season?
Oh, he saved it.
None of us were talking about the
and
Titans.
Not just saved it.
Yes.
Got him to the conference championship.
That's something. Like, that's important.
No,
he has some loyalty in that locker room.
No question. And that there's a lot of value in that. Like Tim Tebow could not play. During that 7-game winning streak, I mean, I remember players talking about, I think God's doing it. I mean, players were like, all in, like, you win in the NFL, guys, you get it hot in the NFL, it doesn't matter what your flaws are. When Mitch Trubisky got to the playoffs, you couldn't find a bear to criticize him.
Have you met Tim Tebow?
He's the nicest guy in the world.
Yes.
Nicest guy in the world.
He does make you think about spirituality, though.
No, I think he's a wonderful human being.
It exudes from him.
Yeah, I ran into his brother in Mexico, actually, and I told him, I said, I loved him, just not as my franchise quarterback, but I love him.
You told him that?
Well, yeah, everybody thinks I hate Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow's a wonderful human being.
We're never talking about guys personally, though. Unless we literally say we personally don't like this person.
No, I mean,
we're not talking about their...
So I have said sometimes I think Westbrook can be a crazy person on the court. That's kind of personal.
Off the court, though, he's a great guy.
No, he's a good guy, but on the court he can go crazy town.
But that's what I'm saying. We're not talking about people's personalities.
I think Russell thinks I'm very personally... I think Russell thinks...
You were very critical of Russell Westbrook. Yes.
I think sometimes...
But you're never saying that he's a bad person, though.
Never one time have I said that.
Because he's not.
But on the floor, he can be a crazy town. He goes crazy town.
He places a lot of energy. Finally, Tom Brady is a month away from free agency, but the Patriots don't want to wait that long to get an answer from him about his future. According to Michael Giardi, the Patriots want to know Brady's intentions before the start of free agency. They don't want to be at a disadvantage with being able to sign other free agents as they wait for Brady to make a decision. Now, I don't really understand how this is going to work because the legal tampering period starts March 16th. The free agency period starts March 18th at 4 p.m. Eastern. But how is he going to give the Patriots an answer if the Patriots haven't made a move that makes him want to give them an answer for staying in New England?
That's why they keep calling this a thread of the needle. There's a couple days in here. He wants answers. They want answers. I can't wait for this. He's going to stay in New England. I am having so much fun with this topic.
I mean, I love it too. We root for chaos, so I'm enjoying this, but I don't understand what the drawing the line, like what are you drawing a line with? He clearly, at least according to New England sources, doesn't care about the money. He wants personnel.
If you told Tom today, we'll give up our first pick for Stephon Diggs, it's over. He's staying.
But, until that happens, it's just words.
Well, that's right. They're just words.
I need to see the paperwork signed. I know. And then you take it to a notary and then come talk to me about what we're doing.
Totally get that.
Trust no man or woman.
Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line News.
I'd like to say something here. I don't think I'm ever personal. Occasionally, I'm critical of people. Baker Mayfield, I do regret one thing. I called him a dope after he called out the medical staff this year. And I came out the next day, I'm like, he's a dope. That's mean. That's personal. He's a nice young man. He married a nice person. His wife's got a nice family. Her brother's a musician. My daughter knows him. He's a very nice person. So I regret calling. When Baker called out the medical staff, I just said, you're a dope. That's not interceptions. I'll defend you. Losses. I'll defend you. You can't call out.
It was ill-advised.
It would be like me calling out the sales staff of iHeartRadio. What are you doing?
It's not smart.
So and Westbrook, he does get crazy town on the floor. Is the timeout Tui? Is that personal?
No, it's not. No.
Goulet? I don't think saying Westbrook gets crazy town sometimes in games. I'm not saying he's a crazy person, but he's got one gear. This is it. He lives in a tunnel, and he unravels every playoff.
But you just said this yesterday. You have to separate art from artists.
Yes.
In your job. We will watch Floyd Mayweather fights. You might not necessarily agree with what he does
cup of tea
or participates in away from the sport, but that's literally what we get paid to do is discuss sports. So we have to discuss what happens within that realm. And obviously there are a lot of shows that expand outside of that, but I think the point is when you're being critical of someone's game, you're not talking about them personally.
All right, there we go. Dopey, let's weigh in on this. Tui, one more time. Is calling Baker dopey a little personal?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, I apologize for
Considering your history.
That's fair. Okay, I apologize, Baker, for that. Do it again. I'll call you that again, though.
There you go.
I'm not going to lie. It was a really bad move. It was terrible. Steven Jackson around the corner coming up. It's The Herd.